Every year, on May 22nd, we celebrate Harvey Milk Day. But who was the man behind that award-winning smile and city supervisor title? Well, Harvey Milk was the owner and operator of Castro Camera, a struggling camera store in the Castro district of San Francisco. As the store became a neighborhood center for young gay activists to congregate and talk about ideas, Milk soon found his voice as a leader and an activist. Harvey Milk became one of the first, but not the first, openly gay official in the United States when he was elected to the San Francisco Board of City Supervisors. His story represents the power the gay community had in politics at the time, and is also one that reminds us of the dangers of homophobia. I'm Alexis Arrington, and welcome to Everyone's Gay, a look into queer history. Born on May 22, 1930, in New York State, Milk was just a normal kid in a small middle-class Jewish family. He was well-rounded and well-liked. He played football and sung in the opera, and he worked at his family's department store. Milk stayed quiet about his sexuality, and even in the wake of an emerging gay rights movement, he was careful and deliberate to stay on the sidelines. After graduating from New York State College for Teachers in 1951, Milk joined the U.S. Navy and served as a diving instructor at the San Diego Navy base during the Korean War. He was discharged in 1955 and moved to New York City, where he worked a variety of jobs, including being a public school teacher and a production associate for high-profile Broadway musicals. He hung around Greenwich Village, meeting and befriending many gay radicals, but soon became bored with his life in New York. And in 1972, Milk moved to the other gay hub at the time, San Francisco. There, he opened a shop called Castro Camera, putting all of his energy and heart into the center of the city's gay community, the Castro. As the camera shop began becoming a neighborhood meeting center, Milk began his life as an outspoken politician. In 1973, he declared his candidacy for a position on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, but lost the election, which was not surprising due to his inexperience with politics and lack of money. But 2 years later, he decided to run again, but lost the second election very narrowly. At this point, Milk had become a powerful political force and well-known name in the Castro district, as he became an outspoken leader in the gay community. And Milk also had many political connections to San Francisco leadership at the time, including the mayor, George Moscone, Assembly Speaker Willie Brown, and Dianne Feinstein. The election of 1977 was the year that Milk, who had been affectionately known as the Mayor of Castro Street, finally won a seat on the City-County Board of Supervisors. He was inaugurated on January 8, 1978, becoming the city's first openly gay officer, as well as one of the first openly gay individuals to be elected to office in the United States. Now, it's a common misconception that he was the first ever openly gay person to be elected in the United States. But that title belongs to Kathy Kozenko, a lesbian who was elected in Ann Arbor in 1974. But Milk was certainly one of the first and certainly still made history. While gay rights was obviously on his platform, Milk also wanted to tackle a wide variety of issues facing the city of San Francisco, including childcare, housing, civilian police review board, and many others. Milk's election had come at a very important time for the gay community and the gay rights movement. Many psychiatrists still considered homosexuality a mental illness at the time, although it had been taken off of the DSM a few years before. If you want to learn more about this fight, make sure to check out our past episode on Dr. H. Anonymous by clicking the card above. And there was also many legal battles overturning LGBTQ+ protection laws. But George Moscone, the mayor at the time, had become an early supporter of gay rights, abolishing the city's anti-sodomy laws and appointing several gay and lesbians to a number of high-profile positions. So while the mayor's liberal views lined up with Milk and his supporters, on the other side of the aisle was Supervisor Dan White, a Vietnam War veteran and former police officer, who was troubled by the breakdown of traditional values and the city's growing tolerance of homosexuality. He was elected by the majority conservative Catholic ward of San Francisco and favored a tough on crime and tough on homosexual model. He frequently clashed with Milk on many policy issues, and a year after his election, White resigned, but after a little time to think it over, and a nice push from his police supporters, he changed his mind and asked Moscone to reappoint him. The mayor refused, as he had been encouraged by Milk and other supervisors to fill White's spot with a more liberal board member. For White, who was convinced that Moscone and Milk were driving the city into destruction, this was a devastating blow to his ego. On November 27, 1978, Dan White entered City Hall with a loaded .38 revolver. He entered through a basement window to avoid metal detectors and walked right into the mayor's office. He and Moscone began to argue as the mayor continued to refuse White's reappointment. And White shot the mayor twice in the chest and twice in the head. After killing the mayor, White continued down the corridor to Milk's office. There, he shot Harvey Milk twice in the chest, once in the back, and twice again in the head. Soon after, he turned himself in to the police station where he used to work. 6 months later, White was convicted, but he was not convicted of first-degree murder. Instead, voluntary manslaughter. White's defense team had pointed to his diminished mental capacity and emotional state at the time, using the Twinkie defense. They argued that the once health-conscious White had consumed too much junk food. And the jury, made up of predominantly white Roman Catholics and heterosexual people, recommended the lesser charge, which led to a sentence of just 7 years and 8 months for the two murders. When the news of the verdict broke on the night of May 21st, activist Cleve Jones, who was a friend and mentee of Milk's, and who will be the focus of the next episode, spoke to the crowd of about 500 gatherers on Castro Street, and a peaceful march was organized. But by the time they marched down to City Hall, their numbers expanded to estimated 5,000 people, and the peaceful march soon became filled with anger. Police arrived to control the situation, which only served to enrage the crowd more, as the police had raised over $100,000 for White's defense. And although they had just been ordered to hold the crowd back from the City Hall building, many officers began attacking the protesters with nightsticks, with some officers taping over their badges so they would not be identified. Chaos erupted as the fighting continued. The crowd destroyed a dozen police vehicles and parts of City Hall, and after 3 hours, officers moved in to quell the riots, using tear gas in the process. In the end, 59 officers and 124 protesters were injured, with about 24 arrests made. Hours after the crowd had dispersed, several police officers gathered on their own to raid the Castro neighborhood. They vandalized a local bar and assaulted patrons, shouted anti-gay slurs at the victims, and eventually began attacking anyone that happened to be out on Castro Street that night. While the police chief was made aware of the rogue activities, no officers were reprimanded for their attacks. The next day, on what would have been Milk's 49th birthday, 20,000 San Franciscans gathered to remember him. That October, more than 75,000 marched for the gay rights in D.C., and gay rights activists around the country were inspired to continue their fight. In San Francisco, the riots led to a wave of political change, as more LGBTQ+ politicians were elected over the next decades. Harvey Milk's legacy is felt strongly throughout the queer rights movement, and especially the activism in San Francisco. To learn more about Harvey Milk, check out Milk, a 2008 American biographical film based on the life of the gay rights activist and politician. The 1984 documentary film, The Times of Harvey Milk, which was deemed culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant by the United States Library of Congress in 2012, has now been selected for preservation in the National Film Registry. And The Mayor on Castro Street, The Life and Times of Harvey Milk by Randy Schultz, a well-known gay historian and author. I'm Alexis Arrington, and this has been Everyone's Gay, A Look into Queer History. If you liked this video, make sure to hit a like below, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Also find us on social media at Everyone's Gay, A Look into Queer History. We're on Facebook and Instagram. Lastly, we have stickers and swag, so head over to Redbubble to order yours now. The link is in the description below. This has marked the second to last episode of the season. I've enjoyed this time with you, and I'm so excited for season 2, which will be airing in the winter. But don't worry, we still have one last episode together, so make sure to check back to see episode 21 next week, focused on Cleve Jones, a queer activist who was mentored by Harvey Milk and is one of my personal heroes. Until then, I'm Alexis Arrington, and this has been Everyone's Gay, A Look into Queer History. We'll see you next week.